Hi everyone, thank you for watching. My name is Garrett Fleming, and I will be telling the story of how two men became the fathers of modern fertilizer production and how one of them will probably never be remembered for that. Scientists in the early 19th century were perplexed by a startling trend that indicated the world's population was becoming larger than our ability to feed it. Imagine trying to feed the world without fertilizer. The yields were minimal, and the future was dark. Scientists began doing experiments on the nutrient needs of plants. In a particular study on wheat yields, they found that nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium were three nutrients that were essential to plant growth. For centuries, people have been using manure from their animals to make their plants grow better. This, however, was just not enough. The first steps after finding the needs of plants were obvious. Find out how to get the nutrients we need and how best to apply them. Phosphorus and potassium were easily available at the time. Both could be extracted from inorganic sources. Phosphorus from phosphate rock and potassium from potash. Nitrogen, though, was a bit harder. Although bone and blood meal were used sparingly, there was only one major source of nitrogen that accounted for 60% of the world's supply: Chile saltpeter, or sodium nitrate. As the world's population continued to grow, the use of fertilizer increased beyond what the Chilean mines could produce, and the price swiftly increased. Seeing this, scientists began to wonder if there was a way to artificially do what some plants were already doing, extracting it directly from the air, which raised the question, was there a way for us to artificially fix nitrogen? There are three methods of artificial nitrogen fixation: electric arc, cyanamide, and Haber Bosch. The first two methods were not very efficient and did not contribute much to the production of fertilizer. However, the last has made a lasting impression. Named for two German scientists, Fritz Haber and Karl Bosch, the process requires very high temperatures and pressures. Haber designed the process, studying the way that nitrogen and hydrogen react, and Bosch designed the apparatus. It was 23 feet and withstood the high temperatures and pressure demands of the reaction. The original process was slow and produced small yields, only producing 198 pounds of ammonia per hour. So improvements needed to be made. When World War I began in the early 20th century, Germany's focus went from feeding the world to maintaining an empire. The Chilean mines saw an even greater influx of business as countries vied for the nitrates needed for explosives. Many of the war's first battles were fought off the coast of Chile, as Germany fought Allied troops for the rights to the nitrates. When prices for sodium nitrate went sky high, Germany turned to its fertilizer producers. They found out that they could use ammonia produced from the Haber-Bosch process by processing it into nitric acid and then into nitrates. This completely cut out the need for the Chilean saltpeter. Fritz Haber, unlike most of his colleagues, was a German nationalist and willingly became a consultant for the German War Office. The German army was incredibly interested in the work that Haber had been doing on gases as weapons, and in particular chlorine. Despite calls for the use of poisonous gas to be prohibited, Haber finally found a general that was willing to use the bombs. And during the Second Battle of Ypres, thousands of steel cylinders containing chlorine gas had been transported to front lines. Using the prevailing winds of Belgium, Haber released mass amounts of chlorine gas into the air, and the winds carried it into the trenches of Allied troops. More than 5,000 troops died from asphyxiation within minutes. A Canadian soldier that lived through the attack describes it as an equivalent death to drowning, only on dry land. The effects are there: a splitting headache, a terrific thirst, but to drink water is instant death, a knife edge of pain in the lungs, and the coughing up of a greenish froth from the stomach and the lungs, finally ending in insensibility and death. It is a fiendish death to die. By the end of the battle, more than 70,000 Allied troops had died at the hands of Haber. An amazing chemist and researcher, Clara Immerwahr was the first woman to receive her doctorate from Breslau University. Clara married Haber soon after meeting him. Her research suffered because she was caring for her family. However, she spent her spare time studying thermodynamics of gases. As Fritz Haber grew more well known, people began to suggest that Clara's lectures were actually written by her husband. As Fritz began studying the uses of gases as weapons, Clara condemned his work, calling it a perversion of the ideals of science. After the Battle of Ypres, her husband returned as a victorious leader of the German army and had been promoted to captain. There was a party to celebrate, and only hours after, Clara took her husband's army pistol, went into the garden, pointed the gun at her heart, and took her own life, refusing to take part in her husband's treachery. Regardless of his acts, Haber received the Nobel Prize in 1920 in chemistry. However, his post-war life was not filled with such honors. With the rise of Hitler in Germany, Haber became known as Haber the Jew because he had converted to Christianity from Judaism. He fled to England where he was shunned because of his work in the Great War. He continued to travel Europe until he suffered heart failure in a hotel in Switzerland and passed away shortly after. With the advancements of modern technology, ammonia production has increased substantially to 1,000 tons per day, and its use has increased to incredible amounts, 400 times increase in the amount of fertilizer used. Haber and Bosch have had amazing impacts on agriculture as a whole, including a six-fold increase in one of the world's most important crops, corn. However, Haber most likely won't be remembered for this. Instead, he will be the father of modern chemical warfare, and known for his lab that eventually developed Zyklon B, the gas used in chambers during the Holocaust, likely killing some of Fritz Haber's own family. A brilliant scientist and researcher, the creator of nitrogen fertilizer, and a killer. The information in this video was gathered from these sources. Again, thank you for watching my video.